talk about is something versus something, right? Okay. So for civil cases, these are lawsuits, family matters, family law, juvenile is usually in the civil system. So, or unless it's exceptional. So in the civil cases, you've got the two parties. Who is the party bringing the case up? Who brings the case?
The plaintiff.
Good, good, the plaintiff. Yes, the aggrieved plaintiff who feels like their rights have been stepped on, they've been treated unfairly, they have experienced malpractice and malfeasance, the contract was not upheld. This is civil law. So the plaintiff is bringing the lawsuit, and who's the other party in this case?
Defendant.
Defendant. Yeah, very well, thank you. Right. Okay, good. So that is a civil case, and normally when a civil case goes up, they are looking for which side has a preponderance of the evidence, right? There's not really any favoritism towards one side or the other. They're just looking at the arguments from both parties and see which side has the preponderance of the evidence in order to see who wins. The person who loses, if there is some kind of monetary damage sought, oftentimes with civil suits, you're going to have some money paid back. The plaintiff wins. Okay, so that's the consequence of that. Criminal trials are different, right? So in criminal trials, who's bringing the case?
The plaintiff.
Oh, wait, sorry, the prosecutor.
Very good. The prosecutor, they are representing who?
The
victim.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now did your reading, thank you. And then who's on the other side of that case? Defendant. Good. Who's been accused of the crime? The level of evidence needed to convict is higher. Remember, what is the standard for a criminal case?
Innocent until proven guilty.
Sorry.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Yes. So there's a higher bar that you have to pass in order to convict. Very good. Because the defendant can lose their life, liberty, or property. Right? It's just not a monetary damage that they're having to confront. Life, liberty, or property. Those three things that are in the U.S. and Texas Constitution is being protected by the Constitution, unless you have been found guilty of these crimes. So how can a defendant lose their life?
Death penalty.
Right, death penalty, good. Liberty?
Prison.
Prison, yes, good job. And then property?
Prison. I don't know.
I don't,
So their money.
okay.
Could be their property, right? Yes, so they can be fined as well. All right, so we have two sides, and the first listed side is the person or the party bringing the case up to the court. All right, let me see if anything else I wanted to. All right, so that's kind of background. I really like to use Texas v. Johnson as my example case as I begin this lecture. Are you familiar with the Texas v. Johnson case? No?
I think we read about it, but
If you took AP government, you might talk about, or even standard.
talked about once.
Talked about once. Yeah, okay, good. Because it's a well-known case. It's a First Amendment freedom of speech case and symbolic speech. And this is Gregory Lee Johnson. Gregory Lee Johnson is a communist who published a communist newspaper in Washington, D.C. He was kind of a rabble-rouser. He wanted to get people's attention. He wanted to shake things up. He did. He's the one. That's very good. He's the one who burned the U.S. flag. Right. And he was doing this, he said, in order to gain attention to his cause, which was anti-nuclear weapon proliferation. Y'all don't remember this, but back in the Cold War, that was a real concern. I don't know, maybe you've seen some of those movies that were produced in the 80s, The Day After, and Testament, and these movies about the day after the nuclear bombs had been directed at us. Fail Safe, there are a lot of good movies about that. But anyway, he was against the proliferation of nuclear arms. And he wanted to draw attention to this. And he especially did not like Reagan and his, defense policies, yes, that were very much in that line. So in 1984, we had the Republican National Convention in Dallas, Texas. Reagan was running for re-election, pretty much a shoe-in, very popular figure in American politics, and especially here in Texas. And so Gregory Lee Johnson goes down to Dallas during the convention when there's a lot of press out there. People are wandering around downtown, convention goers, delegates for the party. And he sets up a barrel in front of Dallas City Hall, that building that kind of curves out like that over the street. It's an amazing architecture. But he's there in front of the Dallas City Hall with this metal barrel. He's got a U.S. flag, and he waits till he tells people what he's going to do. He's going to burn the American flag. So he's got it, and he burns it. Well, people know, the press are there, and he did that for a reason. He wanted the press to be there. He wanted to be arrested, and he was. Because at that time, desecrating a venerated object, like the U.S. flag, was against the law in Texas. It was a criminal offense that Gregory Johnson had just committed. He had burned the U.S. flag. And the media was there. It was obvious. There's no question. He wanted to get into the court system because what he was saying the whole time was, expedite me to the Supreme Court. Expedite me to the Supreme Court. He wanted this to be a test case for burning the U.S. flag. So it's against the law here in Texas. So, all right, where do we start out then? So he has broken a law. He's been apprehended. He's been indicted. So what is the type of case we have going on here? Criminal, excellent, yes. It's a criminal case. And so the first step is to find out what kind of evidence do you have. What is the level of evidence?
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Preponderance, right. Sorry. Not beyond reasonable doubt, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, beyond reasonable doubt, yeah. Which they had. They had the cameras, and they had him confessing, and he did burn that flag. So we started out in a state district court trying the crime. We had a prosecutor upholding the state of Texas law, prosecuting this guy for breaking our law. And so it was a district court with original jurisdiction. Do you remember that from the reading?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is original jurisdiction? Whoever.
Authority to try a case for the first time.
There you go, authority to try the case for the first time. And that's when they're looking at the evidence, is it beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed this crime? And guess what they decided when he went through, let's go ahead and, what was the name of this case?
Texas v. Johnson.
Yep.
Okay, that was a trick question.
Nope. So it was Texas v. Johnson, because Texas is bringing up the case, right?
Okay.
Yeah. You broke our law, we're gonna take you to court. Good. So Texas v. Johnson was the name of that case. They found him guilty. They fined him $2,000.
That's it?
And he had to spend a year in jail.
Oh.
So his liberty and his property being taken away.
Dang.
That's not really that. No. But it was playing right into his hand, because you know what he did next? Okay, so he goes to one of Texas appellate courts. And so what does an appellate court do?
It looks back at the case and decides if it was unconstitutional or unfair.
Very good. Yeah, thank you.
They don't change rulings. They just see if there was a flaw in the law.
Right. So they're not hearing all the evidence again. And yeah, good. So they're seeing if the case was tried correctly. So the appellate court upheld the decision of the district court. They said it was okay. So this was a regional court in Texas. So when it went up to this appellate court to question had the rights been protected, who brought that case to the appellate court?
Johnson. So it'd be Johnson v. Texas.
It would be. Yeah. So that was Johnson v. Texas.
Thank goodness.
So the appellate
That was expensive.
mid-range appellate court, the regional appellate court upheld his conviction. All right, so what's the next step in Texas judicial system?
Court of Criminal Appeals.
Okay, excellent. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Very, very good. The highest level criminal appellate court in the state. What was the name of the case when it went up to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals?
Would it be Johnson v. Texas?
Would it still be Jeff? Yep, because he brought it up again, because he lost in the previous court.
Can you do that? If the appellate court already says that it's upheld, they can still take it up one higher?
It's your next level of appeal.
It just seems like a
Come
lot
on,
of money.
Yes. Exactly right.
I mean, at this point, he's not going.
But look at what the Supreme Court decided, the order of the name for the Supreme
Texas v.
Court.
Johnson.
So who brought the case up to the Supreme Court?
Texas.
Texas, because they lost
Really?
at the Texas Court. Yes.
He was a
So-
hell of a lawyer.
Exactly, and that's what his goal was, right? Expedite me to the Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court. Expedite me to the Supreme Court, because he wanted to make this a national case. Got him a lot of attention.
I bet.
Yeah. So they lost. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals found some justification for the argument that this was negatively affecting his federal freedom of speech rights that he has from the First Amendment. So they overturned the district court's,
Even if it was
Decision.
technically against the law?
yes, because
Yeah.
it was, because federal
Right, over
Supreme
state.
law.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. So if it's federal, then
Yeah.
it can go up to the Supreme Court, and it did. So the Supreme Court heard arguments about this. And the argument on Gregory Johnson's side was stating, all right, so, many laws have this prohibition in place, you cannot burn a U.S. flag. A lot of people agree with that. However, what is the line? So you can't burn a U.S. flag, but they brought up, this was the time when George H.W. Bush was president. His wife, Barbara Bush, would wear a scarf that had a U.S. flag on it. Was that desecration?
No. She didn't burn it.
She did, that's true. But how about women with bikinis with an American flag on them? Was that desecration of the object?
No.
How about when you go to a 4th of July picnic and you have those little wieners and you have those flag toothpicks that you use to pick up
That's
the
being
wieners and then
patriotic.
you
That's
put it in the
patriotic.
trash?
There's a big
Yeah.
difference between
I don't
burning
think
a
burning
flag
flag's
out of
patriotic.
Well, you
hatred
put it in the trash.
and no, that's
Because
not
all
the
that other stuff is in the
same.
trash. So that was the argument that was brought forward to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court sided with Johnson, and the attorney's argument was persuasive for 5 out of the 4 Supreme Court justices. It was a 5-4 decision.
Oh my
I
goodness.
know. So feel free to burn the American flag if you want to, because it's protected under our Constitution.
That's
Yes.
bizarre.
What is the top one up there? The TCCA, what is it?
Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, and I'm sorry I use acronyms. To me, that's how I remember that was TACA. Texas Court of Criminal Appeals.
I do too, as long as I'm with you.
Yeah, good. I need to let you know that, what I'm doing. So it's interesting, once the Supreme Court said the Constitution protects burning the U.S. flag as a matter of speech, of expression, discontent, not liking what the government is doing, Congress started trying to pass an amendment to the Constitution because the Supreme Court, is interpreting the Constitution, and so they want to pass an amendment to put a ban on burning the U.S. flag. And so members of Congress are proposing this amendment time and time again. They never can reach that threshold. Do y'all remember the threshold for getting a constitutional amendment proposed in Congress? How much of each chamber have to agree on that one?
Maybe 4
2/3.
fourths.
Excellent. 2/3. Just couldn't reach that threshold. So that's the case stands. So I think it's a good example of how a case can go through the Texas court system and would end up in the Supreme Court. And how 5 people can make this decision that people are not real happy with. But it's protected. All right. So we're talking about jurisdictions now. We're getting into the key terms. Jurisdiction is the power to try cases and rule on legal matters. Jurisdiction is granted to courts by the Constitution or by statutes or laws. So either our Constitution or the Texas legislature creates courts. Courts can be limited within a particular geographic area, like district courts, regional courts, the appellate level. We have statewide courts. Of course, we just talked about civil or criminal types of cases. In our last legislative session, they created statewide business courts. This is a first, we didn't have that before. So now we have that type, but that would fall under a civil type of jurisdiction, but it's a new one. It's a statewide business court for cases involving businesses, obviously, but also state actors and officials can also be in this court. So it's going to be interesting because they just started up and running now, since they were enacted in 2023, and Governor Abbott appointed some judges to fill them before they could have their elections. So we have a trial court, a lower court with original jurisdiction, and then we have an appellate level court for business courts, statewide business courts. That brings up some question. All right, so do you go to a civil court or do you go to the business court? What is the distinction? Which one should you go to? And that's one of the weaknesses of our court system is it's very, I'm gonna put it on the slide, but it's ad hoc, it's overlapping. What jurisdiction do you use to try your case? If you're going to be the plaintiff person bringing it up, what kind of court do you go to? Certain types of cases, okay, try a case in the first instance.
Original.
Good. Appellate level, so the appellate court can affirm or uphold what the lower court decided, so the decision stands. They can reverse it, so they actually are making a decision against the lower court. So they reverse the decision, so the other side wins. Or remand a case back to the lower court with instructions. They're not going to make a decision who won, which side won, but look at the facts again. Review this case.
What's the second blank?
This one?
No, the,
Oh, sorry, statutory.
okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. The state legislature writes a law, a statute.
So sorry, it's the second bullet down there, right above appellate, is that district?
That is original jurisdiction. It could be district, could be trial, yeah, but, local level courts also have original jurisdiction, so we might want to stay with the district, because that's state level. Original jurisdiction or trial courts try the case. I'll call this judicial federalism. We have division of power in the judicial branches, just like we do with the others. We have a level that's national and a level that's state, and the state, through its constitution and statutes, creates the lower level courts. What was the one? Federalism, so federal. Do you remember what federal means? Okay. Is it Walter? Is that what you, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, what is federal?
Just like countrywide, basically.
Country.
So it's like federal courts would be Supreme Court.
Yep.
Texas court would be Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. City court would be like Stephen.
Yeah, good. And it gets confusing because I use federal interchangeably with national, of course. But with federalism, you've got those different levels of court. So what kind of crime have you committed? Is it a federal crime? Kidnapping, going across state lines, would be federal crime. State crime, most crimes are state crimes that people are tried for. So federal courts, when you took U.S. government, imagine you talk about the district courts, courts of appeals, and the highest appellate court, which is the Supreme Court, right? The U.S. Supreme Court. Good. So there's a three-tier structure to federal courts, and similarly, Texas courts have a three-tier structure as well. So what is this, the bottom level? for Texas courts.
District courts?
District courts?
Yeah.
District courts, good. Just like the federal system, district courts are the lowest level state court. District courts. District courts for both the federal and state courts are those original jurisdiction courtrooms where you're trying the case, you're looking at the evidence, and deciding which side wins. In Texas, we have regional courts of appeals. We just added a new one for our business courts, so we have 15, we'll look at that on the other side. So we have an appellate level, and then we have 2 highest appellate courts. A pathway that started during the construction and people not liking a lot of influence that the governor had over the court system. We have a link to that history in your module. So our 2 highest appellate courts, when we talked about Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, what's the other one?
The Supreme Court.
Supreme Court of Texas, which my acronym is SCOT, Supreme Court of Texas. So cases, just like Texas v. Johnson, they can go up through the appellate process. Oftentimes they do not. It's a very expensive way to get policy change. If you can do it though, more power to you. Oftentimes, like with Johnson's case, you find interest groups and attorneys who are willing to take on the case pro bono because they're interested in seeing it policy change, or maybe they're interested in arguing before the Supreme Court. And so they do have support for people who don't have the money to pay for that. All right, so you can see, just like Johnson, if the opinion or decision at the highest Texas court is not for your side, then if there is a federal question involved, you can take it up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And then you hear it. But it has to be some kind of federal question involved in it. Now, remember, the Texas legislature creates local governments as creatures of the state. So they are creating city and county courts or passing legislation to require cities to create a court. So we have municipal and JP courts here at the lowest level of local courts. Which one of those is for the city?
Municipal.
Municipal, very good, right. So the Texas legislature passed a law that cities have to make their own municipal courts. And the Texas Constitution said that counties have to have a JP court, Justice of the Peace Court. So you're going to have both of those, like Stephenville, the county seat. We have both of those courts operating here. Mostly these kinds of courts hear traffic cases. Maybe you've gone to one in your life. Yeah.
I've actually got one this weekend, so.
Oh no! Well, I've heard it's an experience. And my experience in Fort Worth is, yes, it is an experience, so, yeah. But that's what they do mostly. They're not going to be able to put you in jail.
Good.
Yes, but they can fine you at this level of court. All right, so they are there, and then the Texas Constitution requires each of Texas' 254 counties to have a county court. Try cases there for the county. So that's good. Every county has a court operating in it. But you can imagine as counties became more urbanized, more people were moving there, the caseload on these county courts was just overwhelming. So the state legislature decided we're going to create county courts of law in order to take on these cases. So the county courts are not overwhelmed. So at the county level, we've got county courts that were constitutional, then county courts of law that are statutory. That's very confusing. If you go to municipal and JP courts, let's say you go to the municipal court, Walter, and you don't like what they decide, you're gonna appeal that? You can.
I could.
Yes.
I did some research, but I probably won't.
Yeah.
That's some research.
Well, I don't know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to do that because they gave me 2 tickets for the same thing, and so I wanted to contest
Ooh.
that. No. And I found out how much money it was going to be to appeal.
Yeah.
So I thought, just
Eh.
yeah.
Might as well just pay the fine.
Exactly.
Plus the time and hassle.
The time, the hassle, it's right. But that's something you can do. If you want to appeal, you can go to the county courts. Now, this is different though. The county court will not hear it as an appellate court. It will be de novo. It will just, okay, the case is gonna start all over again at the county level. So that's kind of interesting. You know, that's, okay, it's already gone through this level court, but that doesn't matter. If you want to take, you can go back up there and have a different court look at it, but they're going to look at it fresh with original jurisdiction. And then if you don't like that decision, then you can go to the regional courts of appeals in the state system to appeal that. So, not confused yet? No? Okay. Good. So this is just some information. We have this slide. We see the little pyramid there for the Texas court system. We've got the two highest courts, and there's the words for my acronyms: TACA for criminal cases and SCOT for civil and juvenile cases. One form of jurisdiction that I didn't mention, no, I won't put it on the test, but it is exclusive jurisdiction. We also have that. So the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals has exclusive jurisdiction over death penalty cases. A person has been convicted of a capital crime. The case goes directly up to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Other cases, they can decide whether they want to hear it or not. They are required to hear all death penalty cases because somebody's going to lose their life. So that's exclusive jurisdiction. And the Supreme Court has exclusive jurisdiction over juvenile cases. It goes to that court.
I'm sorry, which court is required to hear death penalty?
The criminal. Yeah. We have, I had to update this morning. We have 503 district courts, quite a few in our state. Overlapping jurisdictions. Some are just for family law, some are for a combination, family and other types of topics, contract, husband probate, you know, just so many. This is something I got from a CJ book. I don't know if any of y'all are interested in CJ and looking into it. This funnel, I think, is a symbol that they use about court cases and what court cases are heard throughout the system. And I think it's very informative because, you know, out here are many court cases where crimes being, let's just go straight with criminal law. Many crimes being committed. People don't know them, they don't catch them, they don't report them. So there's a lot of crimes at the wide end of this funnel. And then after you do report them to the police, which ones get investigated?
So you're saying like crimes like that aren't reported as well?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a lot, yeah, sorry.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot, but those that are reported, okay, they're reported, but then an even fewer number are actually investigated, so the number goes down for investigations. And then a fewer number have the charges brought, and they have enough evidence to indict them. And then even fewer get a guilty plea or a jury trial. Right? Many of them are plead out, they don't go to trial. And then even fewer go to appeal. So this funnel.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah. So very few court cases go up. So that was state, county, city, criminal, and civil cases. County courts have original and appellate jurisdiction, as mentioned. The appellate jurisdiction comes from those lower level courts. We have 254 constitutional county courts created by our Constitution, required by that Constitution, and 238 statutory courts of law. So the legislature created those extra courts to help them handle the caseload. Now think about, in those urban counties, we needed the statutory courts, and so that's where they're mostly located. In rural counties, you're not going to have many of those. In rural counties, you've got your county court. But it just depends on the caseload if you need to have one of those legislative courts added. County courts are looking at criminal class A and B misdemeanors. They can impose some jail time. Civil actions, a little bit higher level civil actions than these lower level courts. Juvenile matters, probate is at the county level. Municipal and JP courts hear civil actions and criminal class C misdemeanors, mostly traffic violations at those levels. They can't issue jail time, but they can issue fines, as said before. So all of these courts on this page, with the exception of the courts at law, none of them require a law degree, you pass the bar.
Really?
Help.
I know.
That's concerning.
Yeah,
What was it? The first point up there?
that, the courts at law, courts at law
Courts of law.
do require you to be a licensed attorney to become a judge at that court. But any other court. I had a friend who's a lawyer who's running for a JP seat in Fort Worth. They have quite a few JP courts because it's so big. And he's a lawyer. But he was running against a man who was not a lawyer but had a name people recognized.
That is
What?
honestly so
Take him
messed
off the
up.
ballot.
So did he lose?
He did lose.
What?
That's
That sucks.
a qualified person versus a guy with a name.
Exactly. You know, I was knocking on doors, trying to get his name out there, and I hate knocking on doors, talking to people about him, trying to help.
Me talking to people.
That's like,
Yeah.
that's
Me too,
bizarre.
girl.
I know, but that's,
too.
I know. But you
Why
think
is it
about,
like that?
Texas history, those pathways.
I guess they don't want anybody.
But can you really be
qualified.
that knowledgeable about law if you don't go to law school?
Don't want anybody
Or
qualified
have
in court
practiced
system.
it.
Right,
Yeah,
but you think about the.
I feel like you
the
should
bu-
don't
the
send
law
it
at
to
some
you
point,
either.
They just need the body there. Have you ever heard of Judge Roy Bean in
No.
Pecos, Texas?
Mm-mm.
No.
Look him up.
I know
Yeah.
Judge
Wait,
Judy.
is that
Law
like the
west of the Pecos, or west of the Pecos, I should say.
is that related to the Judge Roy Scream
Yes!
roller coaster?
Absolutely. And Six Flags might still have that, the building that says Judge Roy Bean, Law West of the Pecos. They used to have that in the Texas section. Do they still have it?
I believe so.
Oh, good, yeah. So it's Wild West law. Somebody came into his town
She
and
don't know either.
got shot, and so he searched the body and he found a $20 bill, and the guy had a gun because I guess it was some kind of shootout. I'm butchering this story, but he found the $20, and so you find the corpse $20 for having a gun because he said it was against the law to have a gun in his town. I mean,
What?
That's law west of the Pecos.
Lost.
So,
Oh my
I
goodness.
know, yeah, it's part of the
Somehow.
mythology of Texas, so, yeah.
Is it just the statutory court that requires it and not the Constitution? Or does it both of them? Or
No.
just the statutory?
Statutory is the one that requires you to be a licensed attorney. But upper level courts do, yes, but for here, these courts, yeah.
I would assume you would also want them in the constitutional court, at least
Yeah.
a little bit.
You would.
Yeah.
One of my friend's dads is a lawyer, and he was representing this guy. I don't remember what the guy did, but he kept telling me, like, there's no way you're gonna get off. There's no way you're gonna get off. And the guy was like, I'm gonna get off. Just trust me. And he was a Freemason, and he had like the ring or whatever. And the judge was also a Freemason, and
Yep.
I think it was family law. I think it had to do with like what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, but yeah, and he let him get off because he was a Freemason.
Dang.
That's crazy too.
It is crazy. But it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. Yeah, for sure.
Also concerning.
So some challenges of our court system is concurrent jurisdiction. So like, okay, do you take it to the county court? Do you take it to the JP court? You could take it to either one. You have overlapping jurisdictions. Where do you want to take your court? Or maybe now the business court versus a civil court, a district. So we have concurrent jurisdiction. We also have overlapping jurisdictions, where two courts could hear a case. Which one do you go to? The state can create ad hoc courts. They see a need, so they create a court. Law degree is optional in some courts. argument that really our system is fragmented and inefficient.
Let's say you go to court and your judge doesn't have a law degree. Could you like question his authority to be making decisions
He's preparing
and then
for
take
his
that
trial.
to
He is
the
preparing.
The next election,
sorry?
right? At the next election. Okay, let me go back.
No, like in court, like
You're not even a lawyer.
like how are you
What are
like
you gonna tell me?
Yeah.
You don't have
is
a
that
degree.
can you take that to the Supreme Court and be like
I should fine you $500.
You're gonna take this
That's a good
what
question.
traffic violation to the Supreme Court?
No, I'm just wondering because I mean
Iconic.
it sounds like something that we could possibly hear about.
I think so.
I
But
think it's something
we
we
would have to change that.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that call for a constitutional amendment? Nobody wants to do that.
Call for a constitutional amendment.
When I make that
do
constitutional, I'll
that.
put y'all up.
Oh, we're ready. We're ready. Let's go now.
And going back to these people too, JPs and county court judges are elected. We're voting for all these people, guys. The only exception is for municipal city courts. Sometimes they can be hired by the city or appointed by the city. They're not elected. That's the only exception. Every other judge in our state we vote for. So if you don't like that they don't have a law degree, maybe vote for someone with a law degree.
Keep that in mind.
I mean, there could be a law that says you can't run to be a judge if you don't have certain qualifications, such as
I agree.
that way makes it easier on the voters, I guess.
Why don't they do that?
But wouldn't that be unconstitutional?
Well, it depends on which court. And that's the point, right?
Yeah.
So it's not hodgepodge necessarily, but we have a fragmented, overlapping, current jurisdiction system that makes it kind of confusing. Y'all confused yet? No? Still clear?
I think it's very clear that our court system is very flawed.
Yes, yes. And one of the things that you could argue too is that because we have so many different types of jurisdictions, you could kind of judge shop. You know, that people do that already,
Mm-hmm.
but that's also a thing. Okay. So, we don't have a coroner. Texas counties don't have a coroner. That's somebody who investigates murders, see maybe cause of death. Texas counties either have a medical examiner, which has somebody with an MD degree who can investigate why somebody got murdered, or their JP. So Texas counties, you have either a medical examiner, ME, or a JP, Justice of the Peace, who may not have a law degree. Don't know what degree they have
How
necessarily.
are they allowed to examine bodies if they don't have a medical degree?
With like a communications degree, I think you got shot.
That's kind of also
Bending
concerning.
Graduated
gavel.
with business when his leg was broken.
His leg's broke.
So you think about those counties, like Loving County, 600 people there in the county. They gonna be able to afford a doctor for their ME? No. JP is just handy
Hmm.
to have.
Well,
So this became a problem
hopefully you know
when
the word.
U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia came to Texas in 2016 to go hunting in West Texas, Presidio County. I don't know that. So he was hunting and at his ranch house one morning, it was breakfast time and he didn't show up. So they went to his room, he was dead,
A judge?
the judge of the Supreme Court.
Oh,
Dang.
Oh!
foul
Yeah.
play.
Oh!
Antonin Scalia. Maybe you've heard of him.
No, but
No,
He's
but
a
foul
federalist,
play.
yeah. So, okay. He had a pillow kind of over his head,
Oh,
but he was dead.
well, that's not looking good.
No. So, according to state law, they need to find the JP because they didn't have a medical examiner to declare him officially dead.
Mhm.
Because that's one of the things they do. So they could not locate the JP for Presidio County.
imagine that.
Literally how? There's 600
So the
people.
sheriff calls the county judge to tell her that Antonin Scalia was dead. And so over the phone, she issued the death certificate. Did not even see his body.
Over the phone?
Because she was there. Presidio, I think it's a pretty big county.
What?
Wait, I'm gonna look up where it's at.
Okay, good. Please do. Let me know. So, fodder for conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
That is all according to Texas law.
Well.
So there are some conspiracy theories going on about that for a while.
Now I know where to go. Awesome.
That fellow over his head.
What?
Yeah, let's go hunting.
It's like,
That's
okay, it's the
concerning.
westernmost part of Texas near the Mexican border. The county seat is Marfa.
Oh, Martha.
So it's over there.
Okay, yeah, way west.
Way west, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Big country.
Yeah.
Middle of nowhere.
Ugly
Middle nowhere.
country.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, yeah, interesting stories. Okay, so judicial selection in our state is in partisan elections. The political party label is put next to the candidates' names. Why do you think we do that? What's the reason for that?
Do they get funded by political parties?
Oh. And it's like people vote for their parties.
Yeah.
Like,
Right?
yeah.
If you don't know the person, you don't know anything about their campaign or what their decisions have been,
Mm-hmm.
you see that party R or D or I or G, and that gives you an idea of what is behind them, you know? And nowadays, especially, ideologies have become so polarized with the parties.
Mm.
Yeah.
Would also help the voter realize the person they're voting for more of a strict constitutionalist versus loose.
Mhm.
So how they're going to the law if they have to go to court.
Exactly. But how many people do you think are going to do that homework?
Not many.
No.
Look at their court decisions. Some do absolutely take the time. But remember, you guys, we're voting on a lot of people. Our federal officials, our state officials, our local officials, in all three branches of government here in Texas. It's a lot of people to keep up with.
Also, it's kind of hard to research stuff because there's such a high velocity of information. It's hard to tell what's true and what's not, and there's so much opinionated pieces.
Yep.
It's hard to tell what's true and what's not.
Yep.
And also, I feel like you have to look like either which side of the spectrum you fall on. You need to look at both sides because usually there's a little bias in both sides. But if you find the commonality, you can tell what the truth is. But other people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah. And especially for judicial decisions, if you read their opinions,
Mhm.
then that can give you an idea too of where they're falling. But
Mhm.
you have to go through a court decision. Have you ever read a court decision?
No.
No?
I don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be rough. So, yeah, partisan elections. So there's a reason for that. Okay, so we've talked about the partisan part. Why do we elect them? Why don't we have the governor appoint them like Edmund Davis used to?
Because then we just have a bunch of puppets for the governor.
Exactly right. So that's part of that 1876 Constitution, right? And the pathways that were established and the reasons why we have things the way we have based on stuff that happened a long time ago. Yeah.
What if one of them dies? Then the governor does appoint that one,
Correct.
right? Has that ever happened?
All the time. Over
That's
Like that one.
suspicious. Like how often is all the time?
Oh, I'm sorry. Over half.
Dang.
I mean, it's
They
a
don't like you,
huge
you're gone.
percentage of sitting judges who were initially appointed by the governor because the governor can appoint somebody just to fill the seat until the election can be held.
Uh-huh.
Aren't they
And-
usually just really old also?
I'm sorry?
I said, don't they tend to be super old also? You're factoring in?
That's true. So when they're initially appointed or just over the course of their careers?
Probably over the course.
Yeah, yeah. Because incumbents tend to win 85 to 96% of the time. If they're already in office, haven't heard anything bad about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have numerous elections. You guys, we had primaries in March, then we had runoffs in May, Then we have local elections in the summer, bond elections in August, and we're having a general election this November. You know, just to keep it up with, well, okay, women need to vote. That's a lot right there. Then once you get to the ballot, it's like, okay, who are these people on this ballot? It's all ballots because we're Texas, and we wanted to have popular sovereignty, and we wanted to vote on these people who are representing us in the 3 branches. Okay, we're doing it. But are we?
No.
Yeah. So incumbent advantage is that when we have numerous elections, limited attention from voters, we have the lowest turnout among most of the states.
Imagine that.
Judicial candidates are often in the middle of a long ballot. There is an incumbency advantage. Name recognition is one reason why people vote for a candidate. That's why it's knocking on people's doors for my friend, so his name would get out there. You see their yard signs. It's really big reason why people vote for candidates. And remember my story about Jim Wright of the Texas Railroad Commission. This candidate came out of nowhere and won the Republican primary against the incumbent. Just incredible. Yeah. So name recognition helps. But how many of y'all have heard of our Supreme Court of Texas Chief Justice? Anybody know who that is? Nope. Nope. There you go. Anybody over here? Chief Justice of our Texas Supreme Court? Yeah.
No one knows.
Not something we're tracking. And many began as governor appointees between legislative sessions. So the governor does have some influence in that regard. Next. Okay, I'm going to stop the PowerPoint right there. But you know, a bit more time. I want us to watch a video I posted in your module, and then we'll talk about it on Wednesday.